So it's been almost a year since the final season of Succession concluded, and this quirky black comedy drama is something that I can see definitely filling that year-long gap that's been there. Set in Middle Europe in a world where a totalitarian dictatorship is present, which is led by Chancellor Elena, where she's head of the realm. Paranoia, fear, a detachment from reality, and horrific atrocities where human rights are neglected occur under her watch. With only one episode being released so far, the stage has been set for a show which looks like it's going to be wickedly humorous and provide a satire look on an alternative reality. So let's get into the video and break down all that there was to take away from this first episode. Here is The Regime, Episode 1, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. So this episode opened up in a beautiful landscape. It almost reminded me of the Schönbrunn Palace that's in Vienna, Austria, a palace that I visited a couple of years back. Whether you're at the highest of hills or flat on the ground, you can see it from a distance, and this kind of had a similar feel. The Butchers of Site 5 was the first thing that we heard in the show. They were a group of soldiers that went and killed 12 protesters for protesting against the cobalt mines. And although cobalt is clearly something that's good for the country and the money that it can bring in due to the Americans being interested in it, it was bad for the people of the area, as it was causing them to have polluted air, dirty water, and a lower quality of life. One of these soldiers that was part of the massacre that occurred was Corporal Herbert Zubak, who's also known as the Butcher. We saw that the Chancellor wanted somebody like him because he was viewed as nothing to her, and she also said that she didn't regret sending the men down there despite what her critics said. This is the polar opposite to how we saw her when she was delivering her speech to the public at the end, when she was saying that she loved them all. So her love for the people is something which is fictitious and put on, because realistically it seems like she'd kill them at a moment's notice if she needed to. When Herbert Zubak was first introduced to us, we found out that he was from Westgate and that it was the land of the sugar beet. Elena said how it was a stunning place, to which Zubak responded and said that it wasn't so much. I think this is the first sign that we're seeing Elena being detached from reality and the state of the nation being in turmoil, and that almost outside of this gorgeous picturesque palace and plot of land that she's in, there's most likely going to be a lot of poverty, suffering, and people that are struggling, all under her watch. We also found out that Herbert's parents were both dead, something which I think could be telling of the state of the world that's going on outside of those doors. We haven't seen the outside world just yet, but judging by what we heard in Elena's husband's interview, there seems to be extreme surveillance that's going on, and also strict rules that are in place for the citizens. The face of the soldier that was outside of the palace and was guarding it was telling of that, and also the fact that the protesters were silenced by being killed. It showed that there was no right to peacefully protest. We were led to believe that the Chancellor was in danger due to the moisture and humidity that was in the air. This was led by Susan and the Chancellor's doctor. Elena inherited her father's AAT deficiency, which meant that she had a higher risk of lung disease, and that was something that she was extremely fearful of. Fearful that she'd die and lose the power that she had and had always worked for. Judging by what we heard about her as a person, she took her father's party that he was never successful with and transformed it to the heights that it's now at, defeating her opposition, Chancellor Edward Keplinger. However, even though she had these concerns about her health, she was prepared to look the other way when it came to meeting important people, such as the Americans that she was planning on doing a deal with. As when Herbert stopped her from shaking hands, she took her anger out on him and showed her true colors, showing that she was just as harsh and brutal as what he was when he showed those protesters no mercy. The ever-present photo of Elena on what feels like every wall gave the impression that it's something that's probably required in every household in the country. Her omniscient watching eyes looking over the citizens of the nation and then being forced to have it there to show their love for her. Elena had a deal with the Americans that she was planning on putting in place where they'd be exporting the cobalt from the country, and the Americans were going to be having around a 30% stake, but they wanted to increase it to 51%, meaning that they'd hold the majority and Elena would lose full control. This is something that Herbert picked up on and used to his advantage when it came to the end of the episode. He knew that Elena didn't really want to participate in the deal, and he used her burning desire for hunger, power, expansion, and to not be viewed as weak, and turned her on the people that she formerly trusted, showing the level of trust that it accumulated by saving her from the protester-turned-building contractor that tried to kill her. We saw this person getting lost around the palace on a couple of different occasions during the episode, and whilst it was humorous, it did always feel like it was something that was gonna come back and have wider importance. And it did, because in this moment, even after demoting Zubak, Elena saw the person that she hired embodying that animalistic, butchering nature that he had within him. Zubak is clearly somebody that's unhappy in his own skin for a number of different reasons we're yet to truly delve into. But the way that he was hurting himself in frustration and him taking that anger out on the person that broke in, with blood going everywhere and him having to be pried away from him, there's definitely more that we're yet to see. Despite Elena being viewed as a bit of a madwoman by everybody that she works closely with, it's clear to see that none of them have the guts to tell her what they're truly feeling. Something which makes the ending with Zubak all the more powerful and important, because it's almost like for the first time she's hearing the truth. They allowed her to get on stage in front of everybody and make a fool of herself singing badly whilst everybody was just sitting there cringing. But they'll all tell her that she was great. Whereas Zubak told her exactly what he felt, showed passion and emotion, and she liked that. She listened to him and believed him when he said that the doctor and Susan were conspiring against her, which ultimately led to them being escorted out of the palace. It feels like the deficiency is something that she's almost done a 180 on and no longer seems to care about, as she went from screaming, "I breathed him," and being in the most ridiculous non-contamination area I've ever seen, to not being fazed by it at all, and instead focusing on wanting to crush the weak and become the omnipotent figure. I do wonder what Zubak's intentions are. It seems like he's going to be loyal to Elena, but it also feels like he's going to be the puppet master and Elena is going to be the puppet. He's the only person that she seems to trust at the moment, and with it seeming like they're going to be getting closer, I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen with that. They shared dreams by the sound of it, a conversation that was slightly confusing, but it feels like when they speak about that, it's more about them being on the same page and having an understanding of each other. Overall review. I thought this was a really good start to the season. It was gorgeously shot, whether that be the grading on the environment, which made the palace and the surroundings just look so glossy, or the different camera angles, which supported the feeling of uneasiness when being ordered to do tasks. It definitely has that Succession style feel to it, and I'm glad that it does, because there's been a gap for something like that for nearly a year now. It's not trying to be Succession, but it definitely feels inspired in some way, just by the style. Kate Winslet was incredible in this first episode. I don't really see her in much these days, but when watching this you do realise how good of an actor she is. She stole the first episode for me, for certain. Her carefree, I don't give the slightest attitude was just infectious and hilariously rude. I imagine there's a more darker side to her too, so I hope that gets explored. I also really liked the performance by Andrea Riseborough. She didn't have much screen time, but I thought the small moments that she had were really funny, and you could sense that she felt like one of the only people that had her head screwed on there. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of her. I've only seen her in a couple of things, but there must be a reason she's Oscar nominated. I also respect the fact that we didn't get 3 episodes or 2 episodes released at once. In my opinion, that shows us that each episode is probably strong on its own merit, and you're not relying on serving up several to get the audience engaged or hooked or to tie the first part of the story together, so I'm quite pleased with that. This show only has 6 episodes, so I imagine it's going to be pretty fast paced, which can go against it, but I'm hoping it's aware of that and will be structured well. It's got me hooked from the off, so let's just hope it continues to get better. So, there you have it, The Regime Episode 1 Ending Explained. What did you think of this first episode? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.